This concludes the televised portion of the agenda. Anyone who wishes to address the board on any subject may do so after the 10-minute recess. Thank you.
Three items for us to move about. I know.
Okay. We are back.
Is there anyone here who's come to speak to visitor recognition?
Bobby.
Yes, Bobby Williams, 168 Spring Street. And first thing I would like to say that I blew a little bit of it last time, but I think I know when I see the budget, and I saw that $500,000 in the budget, and I know it might be almost a dead horse, but maybe some it might be not coming up, but some people don't know what I'm talking about, so I'm gonna put it out that yes, it's a fireboat that the village put in the budget and put in the proposed. It is there, $500,000, but I understand in no funding for it, but it's there. But my opinion is that the village fire department really don't need a fireboat, and we don't have enough territory to warrant, it's my opinion, a fireboat. And most of the part is the part of the town of Ossining, and if the town of Ossining want to fund a fireboat and donate it to the village department or some other element, that want to do that, and some whatever, we still have to repair, to outfit it close to another $500,000. And also with the fuel of diesel, it's over, probably with my municipal government, they're paying about $3 a gallon. And boats in the type do use a lot of fuel just for one day. Probably enough fuel, cost enough fuel to run probably the village patrol costs for 1 week at a boat do for one day. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but it's, for a boat, you can go up the Hudson River and back on empty tank. You're talking about this with a gas boat. You're talking about 16 foot, whatever. You talk about 20 or 25 gallons, and if you cruise a little bit, you talk about a little bit more fuel. So, and so my understanding is that we don't need it. We can save and with this recession.
Thank you, Bobby. We have not funded it, as you know.
Yes.
And just one correction to what you said, the 478,000, not 500, but 478,000, included the complete outfitting of the boat.
I would like to see that.
It's an outfit. First, I've heard a strong rumor from
several sources that unless something drastic changes, the GoTV is going to go dark on May 31st. That they're being evicted from the school on that date, and that there's no provision made, not during the negotiations of the Verizon contract that you did, and not with the expired Cablevision contract for a new facility for GoTV. I do notice that the government channel now runs about 24 hours a day. We get to see pictures of you guys with heroic music at the beginning of the same programs that are looping 4, 5, 6 times each day. I'm wondering where the community fits into all of that, first. Second, in any event, there are people that are going to be working on it, and I hope it's not your intention to actually try to lose GoTV, because there will be other ways to get information around, and part of what will be communicated will be your role in not doing anything about expanding public access, let alone maintaining it. Secondly, one of the things that's not being covered as part of the scope for the environmental review of the new zoning amendments and the new master plan is tenant protection. Tenant protection was considered a hot button by the firm that you keep funding up every time you convene. I'm sure that's a coincidence. But that hot button issue affects 50% of the population of this community, and I would say the class of landlords is somewhere less than 10%. So according to the data that came in through the original master plan committee, comprehensive plan committee, about half the people in Ossining rent. I saw on your website the first time you ran for a trustee, and it was up there for a long time after you ran for mayor the first time, that you planned to introduce ETPA to Ossining. Nothing has been uttered yet, except through your agents who called it a hot button. And I'm wondering why that is, and if you plan to do anything ever. Newsday today, April 15, 2008, had a story they previously reported about pension double dipping. That featured the school district's attorney Larry Reich and his firm, among others, being retained and also being fed into the state pension at the taxpayer's expense. The Attorney General, according to the report today, is now expanding that investigation to cover every municipality in the state. The questionnaires that were sent to the municipalities, they're not looking just at lawyers now, but all professionals, including planners and everyone else, to see, and not dealing just with pensions, but health benefits and others. And I would like to know what data will be made available to the public to look at that, what the village has been doing in that area.
Thank you. It is not the intention of this board, nor has it ever been, that GoTV go dark or go under. It was not the intention of either Verizon or so far Cablevision to build a new station, a new studio. And as we have recommended to GoTV, they should use existing studios in Cablevision studios in the temporary moment while the issue of building a studio is looked into.
Where is that studio?
The studios are in,
There are 2 existing studios, one in Peekskill and one in Yorktown right now, and I think there may be some others around the county, but there are 2 that are proximate. Assemblywoman Gala films her shows up in Peekskill on a regular basis. So in between, we are also working with the schools so that we'll be able to feed the existing shows into the machinery that still will reside at the school, in the school district, but they just won't have the studio operational. That, I think, is what's going to be closing. But we're hoping that we'll still be able to, all of the feeds still come out of the school system at the moment, and none of the feeds are hooked up into the municipal building or the library, which is the negotiated public access point for public access in the Verizon contract. And again, GoTV is in discussion with the Library Board of Trustees and looking at whether or not there's a possibility of building a studio inside the Ossining Public Library.
it's also possible, as many producers do, to shoot on location and have those tapes in and have them broadcast. So among those producers are some of the churches in town.
And those of us that can afford it, but there are people that can't afford it, and they can't afford transportation, for example, to Peekskill or Yorktown. Will Gale be driving them up?
there's a public bus system that goes directly there.
That's
You ever
ludicrous.
taken it?
That's ludicrous.
It's a real street.
That's ludicrous.
Thank you. Yes,
What about the ETPA?
Ossining has a really long tradition of public access, and to ask people from Ossining who've been doing public access for how many now, 20-some years really here, to take a bus to Yorktown, which you have to take 3 buses to get to, so that's really ludicrous and really offensive as far as I'm concerned. Losing GoTV is, it sounds like nobody's heart is really in saving it, and I have a hard time believing it. What we should be doing is we should be encouraging a new population. Some of the young kids at the high school have been training. There won't be any training. How are you going to get kids up to be trained in video production if they have to take a bus up to Peekskill? That's ludicrous. I'll hold this up, I don't know where it's, October 26th, 10 a.m. at the Computer Community Center, Ossining ETPA meeting. Everybody really needs to be there, everybody who rents. This will be at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'll be there to make sure that everybody who comes is registered to vote. When you talk about affordable housing, the numbers that were bandied about tonight were around 40,000 for affordable housing. If you work at a daycare center or if you work for a non-for-profit, you're lucky if you make 24. I never made 24 the whole time I worked for Family Ties. You work for a non-for-profit, you just don't make the money that they're talking about for the Main Street apartments is ludicrous. That's a lot of money. We need affordable housing, workforce housing. This affordable housing is not affordable. I could never afford it. I'd like to know what's going on down at Sparta Park, if we have any kind of an update on that. The dumpster is gone, but it's really easy to see where the unofficial demarcation of the private land and the park was. I went down there with my son the day after the last meeting and we took a roll of film. The trees were not saplings, they were mature. It's really obvious to see. And if we let this owner get away with this with just a little fine, a little slap on the wrist, then anybody's going to be able to do it. The trees that were down there so that he could have a view of the river for his house that he wants to build. If he gets away with this, then it just sends a message to anybody who wants to cut down trees that it's okay. Cutting a public comment. I guess we've said it all. Verizon new customers are being told, I want to get this into, Verizon new customers are being told that it's going to take a year or 2 for them to get any kind of a Channel 12-like news. People aren't being told when they switch over unless they ask. People still think they're going to be getting the public access channels. I ran into a man down at the river who lives up by his food emporium, and he told me when he asked, he was told that they're going to get a wonderful Westchester newscast, but it probably won't be for a couple of years yet. If we're letting Cablevision and Verizon come into the village and to make the money, maybe we need to make them do what they should be doing.
thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I comment a little bit? I just think I should make it clear, the Board of Trustees has nothing to do with the school district's determination to close the studio at Ossining High School. And in fact, the board has been very good at negotiating into the Verizon contract a real public access origination spot that is in a publicly accessible building, that is the library. After that, the GoTV board, which is a separately incorporated 501c3 board, is been charged with working out how do they go about creating that studio and making the public access work in Ossining. And I think I picked up, just in my time around, the board is very committed to having full public access, full government access, and full educational access in the community. And then the key becomes, what do you do in the interim? And that's why temporarily there are existing studios that some people, if they need to film in a studio, will probably be directed to. And if you're doing your videography the way you're doing it here in the courtroom, you're able to simply present that and give it to somebody in GoTV, and it will still be able to be shown on public access. So if you don't,
If this board was committed to public access, they would be sending this out on public access instead of us having to do it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Please,
Anyone else?
real.
Yes, Steve.
yeah, no kidding. I'll be watching the film instead of taping it.
Hi, Steve Kern, coincidentally on a similar subject to where it was just left off by Charlene. The thought occurred to me to ask, in effect, why is this an open meeting? And of course, part of the answer to that is that there's a law that says that, a legislative body having a meeting, it has to be an open meeting by state law. If there wasn't a law, I mean, my curiosity and my question would be to the members of the board, from your point of view, is there a point really to the meeting being an open meeting as far as public participation is concerned? And I put that question squarely in the context of the fact that, of course, this section of the meeting, the public comment section, the camera's off. It's gone. It's not important enough to be televised. The people out in the community don't need to hear what other people in the community are saying about the legislative actions of the board. Because if it's important, it would go out. The resolutions, the public comment on the resolutions being, 3 minutes at the beginning to address, all 20 resolutions that are coming up, that's really kind of absurd. And everybody who ever has watched either in person or on TV has seen the difference between the way things used to be there, where, as a matter of fact, there would be commentary from the mayor, there would be commentary from board members, not always, not all the time, but a lot of time there would be, and there would be explanations sometimes of things that maybe were mysterious if you hadn't attended every single work session or something like that, which hardly anybody ever does. There would be some explanation, and then there would be public comments and questions. Okay, and that would go on each resolution. There's a big difference between that and what there is now, and anybody who's ever been here or watched it or seen it knows the difference and understands the difference. The way the meetings go now, it's almost as if, Mary Ann Roberts could write up boilerplate minutes in advance, because what's going to happen is that this resolution will be introduced, and there will be a motion, and it'll be seconded, and it'll be 5-0, and you go on to the next resolution, and nothing's really happening, so to speak, except that you're going through the motions of the legislation that you have to do in a public meeting because the state law says so. But as far as public participation and that kind of access, it's not present. I mean, in a nutshell, if the physical demonstration, if you were talking to me and all of a sudden I turned around in mid-sentence and looked the other way and turned my back, there'd be no question in anybody's mind what that meant. And that's really what's coming in effect from the board to the public by the way you're running this. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
You are aware that the public is always invited to and encouraged to come to work sessions where a lot of the discussion of the individual items that ultimately come here to be voted on is held. And it is sometimes a very complicated discussion, and we don't start off in the same place on most occasions on most major issues. But we end up with a bill that we can pass, and even then we have had occasions when we don't all vote on for a bill. So the public is invited to comment on the resolutions, and as you said that we don't give opportunity for the people to comment on the resolutions or for people to hear those comments, but that is not the case. At the beginning of the meeting there is opportunity, and people on television can hear what is being said and are encouraged, as I say, to come here. Not everyone who even comes here takes advantage of that full period of time. A lot of people talk to one issue and sit down, or they speak to the issue of not having enough time to speak to the issues before they ever get to any of the issues. So, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? No.
Yes, well, I'm running the tape so you can do whatever you like. The question that I have is, when have you ever changed this 5-0, or anyone changed a vote actually, based on the comments that came from the public from the floor? When? That tells the whole story. There's no opportunity for the public to speak at a work session, and there's no opportunity for anyone to speak off agenda unless it's within a little pigeonhole period of time. But when do you actually listen to the public and act accordingly? I know you want to answer the question.
Madam Clerk?
We have a motion to adjourn?
All those in favor?
Aye.
I was going to say.
Let the public sign on what place as a result of that.
Yeah.
No.
I think, yeah, that's it.
You want to sound?